Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of SCOUTCAST. Finally, brought to you by Fantasy Football Scout. And as always, you're joined by me, Andy, FPL Mode. I'm not going to lie, this feels like the last time we streamed was in February, so I am so happy that we are finally back. I think there was a quiz stream in there somewhere, but that's all a blur, to be perfectly honest. But as always, we are also joined by Nacho. Nacho, you have had 17 days worth of a red arrow. That must be an absolute killer.
Mate, honestly, I've enjoyed the break. I needed it both mentally, both physically. We jump on before this and you mentioned about your monster haul in game week 29 and I'm kind of now regretting being on here. No, who am I kidding? I am very excited for this because it feels like we've been waiting so long and then so much has happened over the last 48 hours. And we've got so much to talk about. And I need to sort my team out. So you guys need to help me out.
I mean, you're not over exaggerating there either about just how much has happened in these 17 days. Not even just the 17 days, just in the last couple of days. The amount of double game weeks that are basically confirmed, blank game weeks basically confirmed, injuries to massive players as well. There's been a ridiculous amount happening, but luckily we've got Hibbo here to also guide us through it. How's it going, Hibbo? Green arrow for you.
It's good. 8 green arrows in a row. I don't think I've mentioned that before. But
what have we done?
well, it's been a lifetime. It feels like it's been a long time. Like we've had some long breaks this season, but this is taking a basket. I think 17 days is right. We have actual blanks. We've got real doubles. We've got some imaginary doubles. And Callum's also signed for Wasps in the last 17 days. So like there's been a lot of change.
There has. We did. I like the top. I think it's lovely. We've got loads of people in the chat that are joining us tonight. Rune, Colin Johnson, Greg, evening Greg, Paul Van Rensburg, Neil Judd. Lots of people in there. FPL Rank Chaser, who's obviously heading up our com team as well, who are doing very, very well. Although they didn't captain. Oh no, they didn't captain Bruno, and they do have a certain Haaland that we're going to be talking about in a second as well. So we need to get through these points because there's an awful lot we want to talk about tonight. We're going to be talking about our points from game week 29, which was about 7 weeks ago. We're going to be looking at the XA and XGI very, very quickly. Then we're going to be looking at the double game weeks and blank game weeks predicted at the moment, although we're pretty sure where they're going to go. Very, very important for our future planning. We've got an awful lot of wildcards being fired up in an awful lot of teams at the moment. So we're going to be looking at a potential wildcard 30 team. There could be some boys on this stream tonight that are on wildcard or thinking about it at least. We've also got a wildcard 31 team. Nacho's made both of those for us. So we're going to be looking at the differences, seeing those players that we want to be bringing in. Even if you're not on wildcard, they're going to be good to look at because these are the kind of players you want to be investing in anyway. And then we're going to be looking a little bit at our best teams and the community team as well. But we want to get onto that wild card really. So we're going to be looking at that in depth a little bit later. So let's have a look at my points from last week. I'm not going to lie. I was very, very top heavy with a certain Portuguese midfielder. I had Pickford in goal with 3. Gabriel with 5, Lewis with 1. Lewis played, which I was thrilled about and got me 1 point. Howson got me 1. 8 Nori got me 2. I picked 8 Nori instead of Milinkovic in the end, mainly based on fixtures. Didn't expect Milinkovic to get a goal and an assist, but there you go. Kluivert got me 2 and Bumo 6. Bruno Fernandes as captain got me 34 points. Best thing that happened to me for a very long time. Saved my game week massively. Got me 100k green in the end. Palmer with 0, who obviously didn't play. Raul with 2, Wood with 2. Isak didn't play, obviously, because they had the blank game week along with Salah and Hall on the bench. So I ended up with, I think it was 57 points, but 34 of those were from Bruno Fernandes. So I think I was down to 1.3 million before that United Leicester game, and then he got 2 assists and a goal and man of the match to get me 34 and get me up to 845k. So yeah, I know what you're all thinking out there. How bad was his rank before this to get a green arrow up to 845k? But believe me, I'm going to take this with both hands. So yeah, 34 with Bruno, you've got to take it, and I'm very, very happy with this. The biggest thing I didn't do was I didn't go for Haaland. And I think as we're going forward, we're going to see that I kept Salah, kept Isak. An awful lot of people got rid of both or got rid of one or the other. And I feel good owning both of them going into game week 30, especially with the big news about the Norwegian meat shield. Speaking about meat shields, Hibbo, talk us through your team.
44 points all out, so I'm green. up to 104k. So happy enough about that. Less happy with the transfers in hindsight. So I had Salah, Watkins, and Trent, the Haaland, Bumo, and Guardiola, and a captain Haaland. So obviously Haaland's injured. The news that we've seen, he lumped out against Bournemouth. He left the field about 60 minutes. And it looked as if he jarred his foot, and it looked like it was about an impact injury as well. He left the stadium in a protective boot, needing crutches, and that's not always a real giveaway because players wear protective boots these days, even as a precaution. But it looks now as if Man City have released information to say he's going to be out for the mid-term at least. So he could be out. He could be back before the end of the season, but it looks like he'll be out for double game week 33. So he's injured. Salah plays football again real soon, which is poor for me because I've sold him. And Palmer didn't show up last week. So I think we've talked in recent weeks about unseen luck and luck run against you sometimes. And I think this is a good example. People that went out and bought Chris Wood and decided they swerve Haaland, they come out smelling like roses this week. And really, it's probably a 50-50 going on the week what they were going to do. But for me, anyway, look, I'll just go through my points. So from back to front for the podcast, people had Pickford, Guardiola, and Mikalenko. They all did nothing. Gabriel got a clean sheet. Bruno obviously hacked up in midfield, 2 goals and an assist. Bumo got an assist. With 2 Bournemouth mids blinked. And then up top, I had Pedro, and Haaland got a goal and 7 points, doubled up for captain. So, overall, pretty happy with the week, but it looks like I have to wildcard, I think.
You're pretty sure?
Well, we'll go on it now as we talk throughout the stream, but I think the main factor for me against this early wildcard was the fact that you could be jumping on maybe Marmoush and boys like that, but having the factor getting Haaland on in 2 weeks' time. And that looks as if it's gone. It looks as if you're going to at least get beyond double game week 33, get that Man City double out of the way. And because of that, I think we're going to see waves of wildcards getting activated because that was one of the main things. We don't have fixtures. We'll touch on it more as we get on the show. We don't have fixtures, but we've got fairly good fixtures, and we'll explain throughout the show why the belief is there that these fixtures are going to land as they are or as they're predicted.
Yeah.
But there's reasons for it. I've no Palace. I've no, I don't have Isaac. I don't have Salah. I do have Haaland. I don't have Marmoush. There's a sea change. It's not good. But on paper, I could look at my team for this week and say, look, I think my boss team looks okay. I could maybe make one transfer. But with 8-9 game weeks left, it's not about okay. It's about dropping the hammer. It's about dropping the hammer and trying to have as good as strong a side as you have every week. And if your team can be considerably better this week, maybe the risk's worth it. And I think that's really going to be the crux of the episode. There's a bit of risk in going early this week, but is the risk worth it? Let's discuss.
Nacho, did you hear him earlier trying to get his little violin out about bad luck after saying 8 green arrows in a row? He's honestly, he doesn't stop this lad, does he?
But that was good play, the 8 green arrows.
Fuck, honestly.
Right, let's
watch it now. Better will get a hat-trick.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about some luck that maybe hasn't been going your way. Nacho, talk us through your team this week. Although quite a haul there for one of your defenders.
Yeah, probably the only 2 standout things really in game week 20. I'm just trying to remind myself because it has been a lifetime ago. So 43 points and the complete opposite of you, Andy, for the game week. So I was actually on for a decent enough rank. I was doing okay come Sunday. Arsenal game pass, got the clean sheet for Gabriel, fine. But then that Fernandes haul basically decimated me and went from a green arrow to a red arrow. So I'll just quickly read out 43 points. Pickford with a 3-pointer. Vandenberg coming in. I thought he would do heroics. 1-pointer. Mikalenko with a 2-pointer. Milenkovic with 11. That was a transfer in. And I was weighing up the 2. Got quote-unquote lucky with a goal assist, to be honest with you. And then obviously Gabriel with a 5-pointer. Midfield, I mean, I will wildcard even if my team's perfect just to get rid of Semenyo. Anybody that has owned Semenyo for the last few weeks will understand my pain. Looks great. People look at his numbers, go, "Oh, Semenyo looks great." No, he is so frustrating. So Semenyo 1, Clive at 2, Palmer 0, and Mbeumo 6, and then Visser. It could be painful to get rid of him. 8-pointer, and then Chris Wood with captaincy 4 points all in. Red arrow to 141. Everybody told me when you buy Chris Wood, it resolves all of your problems, and it has done the opposite. Andy, you had the same problem as me. It's been Cunha to player injured to player injured to suspension. It's been a disaster.
Literally, I sold Wood because I already had Wood. So I sold Wood. He got a hat trick when I bought and Di got 1 goal in the double, got injured. Then I bought Cunha, got suspended. Brought Wood back, got injured. So
Mate,
that player's now going to be Marmouche. So, just fair warning to all those players that think about buying him this week. Let's have a look at the XA tables very, very quickly. We're not going to look at these for too long, but we do want to look at them because we do it every week. So these are the XA totals for over the last 6 game weeks. We've got Mikel Damsgaard at the top there on 1.98. Elanga and Cliver, who are all above 1.9 over the last 6 game weeks. All of them with 3 assists and over 600 minutes as well. Not bad from those 3. Bellegarde, who, by the way, is starting to really appear on my radar the last couple of weeks. He's been killing it. 4 assists for Wolves, 1.83 XA. Then we got Rashford, Szoboszlai, Salah, Bruno, who's up there as well, and then Neto and Mbumo too. Then we got Tyrick Mitchell, who is just a legend. Yuri Tillemans, Alcaraz for Everton, who started to do a few things for them recently. And then we got Eze and Haaland as well. And obviously Haaland, we have the news that he's probably going to be out for most of the rest of the season, unfortunately. Yeah, when looking down these, obviously you just mentioned there, Nacho, that you absolutely despise Semenyo now. I know we mentioned a little while ago about Bournemouth assets. Cliver here is 3rd. If you were wildcarding this week, or even if you weren't, they obviously got the prime fixture this week. Is it Cliver and nothing for you, or are there other Bournemouth players you'd be going with?
Well, I think Bournemouth are a really interesting one because if you are looking to wildcard in game week 30, then it's quite difficult not to have a Bournemouth player with that home game against Ipswich. Now, again, the big problem with Bournemouth, and it applies to all of the FA Cup teams, is that they have played obviously over the weekend, and a lot of these teams are up against those that have had a long time to rest up. So you can make that narrative that Bournemouth might actually be a bit slow at the traps. I cannot honestly comprehend my hatred towards Semenyo, but I got to put my bias aside on this one and still say don't buy Semenyo. I still think Cliver is ahead of Semenyo, but I will say off the back of an FA Cup game, would we be surprised if there was some rotation with Cliver in that team? I don't think so, because he's been a minutes risk regardless after the return of Evan Nielsen, minutes getting shared out. So I still think Cliver is the one, but I do look at him long term and think there could be better midfielders that emerge later on with doubles that Bournemouth don't have.
Yeah, that's fair. And I mean, one of the better midfielders that has been a really good midfielder for us for all year, Hibbo, is Mbuemo. Now, he's one of those players where he's been good. He's been on penalties. He's had some games where he's done extremely well, like against the Saints. But I'm seeing a lot of people saying, actually, I could probably get rid of him for an Eze, for a Clive, whatever it is moving forward. Do you see that? Or do you think Mbumo's just going to stay in your team for the next couple of weeks? Even on wildcard, would you keep him?
No, I think he most certainly leaves. I think if I didn't wildcard this week, I would keep him. But I think on wildcard, we'll talk about wildcards more in depth when we get into looking at specific players and specific teams. But I think you're going to be looking at Crystal Palace, Mads. Do you know that goes without saying? People that don't have Salah want to get him back. Kluivert's in the mix as well. Eze, Sarr. There doesn't really seem to be room. Saka's obviously in the radar as well because he's training with Arsenal again. So there doesn't really seem to be the room for Mbuemo right now. He's been a good servant. He served the teams well, but I think going now on this final run of fixtures, we have to look at players that are effectively doubling, and that's not going to be him because we'll touch on fixtures more. But it looks as if Palace or Brentford and Forest progressed obviously past Brighton in the FA Cup, but they might not even blink in 34, which would have been potentially a double for Brentford. So if Brentford are doubling, there's no room for Mbuemo, I'm afraid.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one with him. I feel like he's got the potential to be one of those players where everybody says, "Oh, we got rid of him because he didn't double," and he's carried on doing really well. And I feel like it's the same with Wissa, Nacho, where we're getting rid of players, but this happens every year. You've got to obviously go for it. But looking at the XGI tables, a certain Beto is at the top there, but he has played an awful lot of minutes, 776 minutes, 3.86 XGI over the last 6 game weeks. Then we got Ismaila Sarr, and I will be asking both of you about Eze or Sarr in a second. Mateta is also up there, Salah, Kluivert, Haaland, Wissa. all above 3, along with Alanga, Zoboszlai and Minter. Then we got Utara, Watkins, Palmer, Enzo Fernandez and Semenyo. Obviously, Nacho's little love child there. So, Nacho, if I go to you first then, Sarr and Mateta in the top 3 here, nobody really expected this from Palace this year, but they seem to have done exactly what they did last year, and is that they're finishing strong. Sarr and Mateta both appearing to be, incredible assets to own. Eze's up there as well on the XA from what we saw just now. Would they be your top 3 owns moving forward? Mateta, Sarr and Eze, or would you bring Munoz in for one of those?
Yeah, it's really difficult. So I think we've seen across the course of this season that once Mateta came back and actually had the opening few game weeks to have his preseason because he had a busy summer, it got up to scratch, and it has very much been the Mateta team. Obviously, Sarr has been fantastic this season, but it does very much feel like Mateta has been the focal point in that Crystal Palace team. And we are seeing the best of Crystal Palace now that they have everybody available to them. Behind that 3 with Wharton in the midfield and that back 3 just really looking solid. So as an actual team, going into game week 30, firstly, I will say, I think we can confidently invest in Crystal Palace. And if we were to suddenly see a massive drop-off in form, I think it's one of those is what it is. I think we've seen enough right now to be confidently investing. I think Mateta's a lock. I think it's a coin flip between Eze and Sarr because I don't see anything from Sarr to suggest why you wouldn't select him. But we just know of Eze sometimes when a player is just a straight baller and they have that magic that they are always going to do things on a field that other players can't do. And there's a bit of nostalgia about Eze from last season. So I personally think it's Mateta, Sarr and Munoz. I think Munoz offers a place in those wildcard teams or just a general transfer as a defender with the upcoming fixtures. And he has basically played as a second forward at times. And I do think he has that double-digit potential that maybe some other defenders don't offer right now in the game.
Yeah, no, I like it. I mean, Hibbo, if you had to choose now between Sarr and Eze, who are you picking?
Depends on the budget, and it depends kind of what team value people have. I know that's such a cop-out response, but historically, I like Eze as a player, but you could argue that like my historical view of him as an asset is probably biased by the fact that he's had pens, he's had set pieces. It looks like Matera's got the pens, but the one thing I would say is Matera's obviously come back from his head injury. Is he going to play all game, every game, straight out the gate, or is he going to maybe play 70, 75, 80? Because it maybe gives you a wee bit of a scope for a late penalty for Eze. I know that's a wee bit of a stretch, but right now, if I had to pick, I think I would pick Eze, Matera, Munoz if you're pushing me in a 3.
It's a tough one with Eze because I don't think an awful lot of people would be picking him if he hadn't just scored his first goal for England and he didn't score in the FA Cup as well. I feel like because he's not really on set pieces, I don't think at the moment either, is he? I think, is it Will Hughes on set pieces? And so I look at it and think, I'm not really sure, because if they were the same price, I think I'd be going Eze, but there's obviously a significant save in there going for Sarr. And like Nacho just said, it seems like the template is Sarr, Mateta, Munoz. But there's that, what Nacho mentioned before, which obviously isn't exactly an analytical approach, but that kind of baller metric there, which he's just a brilliant footballer as well, and he can turn up. Look at the last game of the season. Everybody went Elise last year, and it was Eze that obviously hauled, didn't he? So I don't know. Is he worth the extra money over Sarr, or do you just go Sarr considering that the double game weeks aren't great as well? I don't know. Nacho, are we on to anything there, or do you just think you're still just happy with Sarr because of the saving?
Yeah, I think that's really it. I think you're both are fantastic picks. While Sarr continues to be a threat in this Crystal Palace team, and he is, 1 million cheaper than Eze,
yeah.
I still personally do prefer Ismaila Sarr and then push the budget elsewhere, really. I think the only thing I would say about Eze is that if we do identify some players that are at the exact same price point, that you could maybe sideways move later on, possibility, but these Palace players are going to be around for game week 32 and game week 33, so I don't really see them coming out of a team anytime soon. So if I had to nail my mask, I would probably say Sarr.
Yeah, I get the same impression from Sarr that I do from Semenyo, from all those people that owned him.
Don't say that.
A lot of people own Sarr, and they're like, we didn't do anything for me for months. So I don't know. It's going to be an interesting one with them, but we'll talk about them a little bit more later as well when we look at the Wildcard 30s and Wildcard 31s, because we have here from Solio, Johnny C at Blue Sky, is the predicted double game weeks and blank game weeks. So in game week 32, we have 100% Crystal Palace and Newcastle double game week. In game week 33, we are pretty certain we have Arsenal, Aston Villa, Crystal Palace, and Man City all doubling. And then because of that, in game week 34, they will all be blanking. So if you're investing in those Arsenal players, I'm seeing people with triple Arsenal defence, double Arsenal defence, with Villa, with obviously triple Palace and City as well. If you are going for that and you've got the double game week 33, game week 34 will be the blank. So make sure you keep that in mind. A lot of people are thinking about free hitting in that week, so they don't have to think about it. And then obviously we got 36 and 37. We won't know those for definite until we get a bit closer with the FA Cup finalists. But when we're looking at this, Hibbo, that game week 33 and game week 34 swing, there's so many different scenarios here, which is obviously where it's tricky, but if you were on Wildcard and you didn't have a free hit, because obviously if you did have a free hit, that's perfect scenario, isn't it? If you didn't have a free hit, how on earth do you play it? Because you want to hit this double game week 32, double game week 33 as hard as possible, but you could be leaving yourself in an absolute hole in blank game week 34, couldn't you?
I think in that scenario, you need to still have a wild card, and you probably need the wild card later.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like I know some people, like we always talk about Andy Martin because he's Andy Martin, but like I think he's talking about a slightly later wild card because he's in a position where he free hit it through 29 and he's in good shape for the earlier doubles, and he's passing Newcastle will hold up well, and that's grand. You know, it's a different way to play the game. I think for most of us, how we approach these doubles is dictated by our current position. Do you know how many Newcastle players and Palace players do you have? How many players do you then have for the double game week 33? If you're light all round, you're wild carding. Do you know what I mean? And this is ultimately what it boils down to. And I think like this was an interesting break because it was a long break because it was the international break, but they also decided to make this a dedicated FA Cup slot. Oof. So that's why it was 17 days in total. And you're right, like we're talking Arsenal, Villa, Palace, Man City, they definitely blank on 33. But this visual gives like a really clear indication of where the fixtures are going to go, and people would maybe wonder, well, how can you be so certain? And I think part of the thinking is that with Arsenal and Villa, they're still in Europe. So like their midweek slots are low.
Yeah.
There's a free slot in game week 33. So it's just logical that it goes here. The other one is Forest, the Forest and Brentford fixture. You know, they might not even blank in 34, and people are potentially wondering, well, why is that? You know, why are these teams blanking and Forest might not blink? And that boils down to the fact that Forest play on a Monday night in 33 and they play on a Monday night in 35, and they're both TV games. So they're hard to move, so it's hard to create a double in 33 in effect for Forest. Now, these are predicted fixtures. A complete curveball could drop. Do you know, when this is the argument against the wildcard, because like we'll look at this and we'll see 90% certain, 95% certain, and like the common theme that we're seeing in group chats, that we're seeing on Twitter, that we're seeing on socials, this is obvious, hit the wildcard. But there has to be a downside, and the downside is,
oh yeah,
what if something drops slightly different? What if Forest Brentford double actually ends up being a double in a different week and doesn't stay in 34? That could happen. What if they don't put the two fixtures in 33? They should do that. But that could potentially happen. And I think this is why you're going to get the balance of people that are maybe going to be a wee bit cautious and think, you know what, I'll play through 30 and I'll see how these fixtures are going to land, because they're going to assume that by the deadline on Saturday, we should know what the doubles actually look like. At the minute, we're guessing based on, I suppose, the science of how fixtures generally work, the free slots that are available, the thinking around TV games and games get put on TV. But there is a wee bit of risk in the fact that if you go early, you could be left looking a wee bit stupid if one fixture moves to a different slot. Do you know, and that's...
I do like the fact you've said that, because actually, when you look at the predictions, actually, there's quite a few of the predictions that don't turn out how we think they're going to, and things move and things like that. But I was going to ask you, Nacho, and this is basically the biggest question of the night, so congratulations, I'm asking you it, is In what position should you be in that means you should be wildcarding this week? So if you're looking at your team this week, what should you be looking at to say, yeah, I should be wildcarding?
Okay, so first thing we need to look at is injuries. So if you have two of Haaland, Chris Wood, Trent, Lewis Hall, don't include Cole Palmer back in full training, he should be fine. Then you have to at least consider the wild card first and foremost, especially if you have no transfers available. Secondly, do you have coverage in that double game week 32? Because even though we are speaking about these projected doubles in game week 33, a blank in 34, the one thing we definitely know is game week 32 is a double game week for Palace and Newcastle. People are talking about how the fixtures aren't great for Palace. It's still a double game week. We want a piece of that, and a treble up is quite important. So again, do you have coverage? If you've only got Isak and you've got maybe one Palace, then again, how are you going to get yourself to two more Palace and two more Newcastle with maybe limited transfers? If all those things are starting to make a bit of a, sense about yourself, and that is sounding like your team, then I would consider the wild card in that situation. I think the one thing I would say is don't be tempted just because others are doing it, because everybody has different teams, different scenarios. We're going to come on to our teams later, and we have differing teams, but we might come to the same conclusion just because there are opportunities presented in front of us. And I think that's the last thing is wildcard in game week 30, even if you don't have injured players and you are well prepped for game week 32 to an extent, I would say there are opportunities in game week 30 because of the last news in the 24 hours. Haaland's injury, we have an amazing option in Marmoush that's emerged at 7.3 million. We've got great fixtures, like we said already, for Crystal Palace away against Southampton. There are good fixtures in game week 30. Arsenal well rested against an FA Cup Fulham team weekend. I think there are good opportunities in game week 30 for managers to attack.
And it's interesting looking at this list here in terms of the fixtures, because if you don't play your wildcard in 30, or you play it in 31, for instance, if you don't want to use it in 30 or 31, if you use it in 32, it doesn't seem ideal, but if you want to use it in 32, you then can't triple captain, say, an Isak. If you use it in 33, you say can't use your bench boost, or, triple captain on some of those double game weeks as well. You're not going to want to use it in 34. And then you're getting quite late, but people do like using it late. I don't, because I feel like it doesn't maximise, the amount of weeks you can get from the wildcard. But also, there's people out there with assistant manager chips still. So you're looking at that and thinking, my God, like trying to pick a 3-week slot in this at the moment. I'm guessing you go Crystal Palace, wouldn't you? Because they've got doubles. But it's an absolute minefield now in terms of using those. And if you're not going to use it in 30 and 31, it's a tough one, I think. But I'm like I said, we're looking at kind of wildcard this week and thinking, when do we use it and how is it going to look in 30 and 31? Hibbo, I'm going to ask you the opposite question now. So what would you be looking at in your team if you were thinking, lovely, I don't need to wildcard this week, might not even need to wildcard next week?
What would I need to be looking at? Well, you'd be talking about being close to like a wildcard team. And I do think there's pieces of that team that people have. If like you're talking about in defence, Gabriel, Guardiola, maybe a second Arsenal defender like Saliba. Like these are the kind of players that I'm sure Nacho has put in the draft that he's prepared for us. Midfield, Salah, Eze, Kluivert, Sarr are the kind of names that would be popping up. And then up top, Isak, Mateta. Marmoush is an easy one to get to, because of his price point and the fact that you were expecting him now in DC's expected minutes bump. He could be on pens. He was great for Frankfurt, and I think this could be his time to shine. But I think Nacho hit the nail on the head. Does it in preview this week by wildcard, and he says he felt that there was opportunity there, and there definitely is. And he makes a great point about, look, don't get blindsided by the imaginary double game week 33. It more than likely is going to be a double game week 33, but we have a real double in 32. We've got Newcastle, we've got Crystal Palace, and you could have Palace going double, but also kind of going Southampton this week, and like the Palace stack is aggressive, because you can have Mateta up top. I think he's an absolute lock. In midfield, you're going to go for Eze or Sarr. And then in defence, Munoz. And while you could turn around and say about their double, I think one of their doubles is Man City away, Newcastle away, is that right?
Yeah, it's not the best. And they got Arsenal as well, I think, haven't they?
But you're picking the attacking players. Do you know, like you're not doubling and saying, "Oh, I'm going Henderson, Gahey." Do you know what I mean? They're not that kind of team. Like Munoz has got goals and assists in the locker. The other players do as well. Man City can be scored against. Do you know, they're far from watertight at the minute. So I don't hate it, and I don't hate it as like a double attack play. And I think this week, putting in triple pass into my team where I have no pass makes my team so much stronger. And I think that in itself is the opportunity. How do we expect these players to score this week? We expect them to score well. What's their ownership like? Probably more or less on the floor unless people start to wildcard them in. Like how many people have Sarr? I know Munoz is fairly well owned. Matera, nobody owns him because he's been injured. Do you know, so you've got that opportunity to jump on. Like Marmoush is one I'm thinking I could buy this week and I could cap him. Now, like, you might be thinking I'm going nuts. But I'm being serious. I think there's an opportunity with the fixtures in Man City game 2. They're at home to Leicester. Gvardiol's great. Marmoush is great. People are talking about Foden, Savinho. Like there's plenty of picks that you could turn around and say, collectively, if you put them together, these guys make a terrible wildcard team. Do you know? Because the one thing I would say when you look at the wildcard 30 is it could age really badly. Do you know, like some of these boys could lose their place before a double game week. Pardon my French, you'd be up shit creek. But I don't know. I think there's also opportunity in the fixtures, opportunity in the doubles, and
wow,
I'm feeling it. Like I'm going for it. Like, you know, I can't see me getting the deadline and not active.
Let's hope we can trust Nacho's wildcard because I brought it up on the screen here. So Nacho, do you want to talk us through your wildcard? So this is your wildcard 30 draft. So we've got Nacho and Hibbo here, and we'll allude to this now. Nacho and Hibbo are both thinking they could wildcard this week. I'm most likely not going to be. But Nacho, talk us through this team at the moment and where you're thinking with those picks, and we'll kind of pick it apart.
Okay. I will say there's also a lot of players here. I think what will be really good is I'll highlight the ones that I think personally are basically locks in the game week 30 wildcard, and the players that I really think are up for grabs and I've just been put in almost as positional picks. So first of the goalkeepers, we've got Raya and Pope. Controversial with Pope, but we'll touch on that one. I think Raya is just great long-term for Arsenal, and we're anticipating a double in game week 33. I think that is pretty much a lock for a lot of teams. Pope's in because of the future Newcastle double, and I personally don't think right now I can sit here and say there's a defender that I absolutely guarantee minutes with. Burn possibly, but I just don't know if I love that really. In terms of the defenders, we've got Gabriel, Munoz, Konsa, Wan-Bissaka weirdly, and Vardial. I think Gabriel, if you've owned him since day one, you just keep him. I don't think you need to stress about that. Munoz, we've already touched about how really important, doubling 32, playing like a forward. And Vardial as well, I still think is good for these upcoming fixtures and the potential double in 33. The reason why Constance in there, because Aston Villa have a good game in game week 32 away against Southampton, and they potentially double in 33. Wan-Bissaka is in there as a placeholder, to be honest with you. Long-term West Ham, good. They cover you if you don't have any chips available, but we can discuss that one. I'll just cover off the rest of the wildcard. Kluivert, Sarr, Murphy, Palmer, and Salah. So for me, Salah and a Palace midfielder just are locks in that team. We discussed Sarr as the cheaper alternative. Kluivert, for 1 week, great. Long-term could be a concern. And I think Murphy is the best alternative to Isak, but also my favourite. I prefer him to Gordon, I'm going to be honest, because he's so much cheaper than Gordon and we don't know the injury status on him. And for me, Cole Palmer's in. The reason being is Saka's back, but I can't see him being absolutely running to the ground with their Champions League game either side of fixtures. I think Palmer's a great placeholder until game week 33, where Arsenal will double, hopefully, and then you move out to Saka. I don't think you need to take the early risk on Saka. And the front three is going to be the most template front three ever in Mateta, Alexander Isak, and Marmoush. So for me, just reading them out, I think Raya, Gabriel, Munoz, Vardial in defence, Salah and Sarr Eze, Mateta, Isak, Marmoush are, for me, kind of non-negotiables.
Do you know, it's really, I've got obviously a few things to talk about with it, and I love it, by the way. I think it's a really, really good draft. I think that Mateta, Isak, Marmoush saying it's the most template. It's the most template because it just works, doesn't it? And not only that, I can guarantee you Barry in my Works mini league is not going to have Mateta, Isak, and Marmoush up front this week. Like, I can guarantee you. And that front three should do you well for the next 3 weeks, shouldn't it? So I think that makes an awful lot of sense. Do you know what I do find really interesting is that I don't think the best goalkeeper choice is going to be picked by anybody, because you're going to have Munoz, Sarr, and Mateta. Because I think Henderson's the best choice, but you can't get him, can you? Because you're not going to pick him over Munoz, and you're not going to pick him over one of those cheap mids either, are you?
I think that's it, really. I totally agree. When I was trying to put a goalkeeper in, Henderson just screams amazing value. But when you've got someone like Munoz, who's just so out of position right now in this Palace team, I just think you're going to pick Henderson. He might get one of those double-digit returns that he's had this season, but I think Munoz is just much more of an exciting pick. But he is 5.1 million, I believe, now. So if you haven't had him early doors, then I think there's an argument, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, Hibbo, the other thing I was going to ask you about this one, just Clivert there, I thought a wildcard 30 might have at least one more Bournemouth lad. Do you think you ought to squeeze a Kirkes in there, do you think?
No, because I think the danger that you have on wildcard 30 is that you don't want to pre-book too many transfers. So like Nacho's talking about the ready there, like using Palmer as a placeholder for Saka. Like, look at this team. Villa's going to double at some point, and I think they'll double in 33, presumably. When Newcastle won't double. So like you're gonna be trying to transition maybe from Isak to Watkins. You're also kind of booking on that move to get from Palmer to Saka. So I think in that respect, you can't really be going down the route of too many Bournemouth, if you know what I mean. So I think that would be something I'd be fairly mindful of in terms of kind of building this team. Like making sure at this point, like you obviously need to have your 3 Palace in place. You're going to have your 3 Newcastle in place. I think the composition of how that looks, it's going to be down to personal taste to a certain extent. I don't think I would go for Raya, for example. I think if I was going for Aston Villa, I might go like for Martinez as a keeper instead. He would potentially be an option for me. But I think it's about kind of chopping and changing through those different kind of iterations. I would be tempted, if it was me looking at this team, I'd be tempted to have somebody like Saliba on the back line instead of Raya. And I would definitely be tempted to start with Saka.
Really?
Now, I think the major risk is he's not ready. Do you know? But I think the other risk is building a wildcard team in such a point that you have to spend a pile of transfers. And I think, see the wildcard team in 30, you're probably going to have to spend 2 or 3 transfers anyway. And I think building booking too many future transfers on is going to just lead you on a bit of hassle down the line where like you could potentially need to take a hit, or you'd be looking suboptimal in terms of too many single game week players going on to a double. So I think Saka will be on the radar for me.
See, I really like the Palmer placeholder for Saka. I think that works. I mean, the only other one I suppose is Foden, isn't it?
3 City, like I will be looking 3 City too. Do you know what I mean?
Problem with Saka is the fixtures. So just for context, Arteta has stated that he's done all the checks, he's good to go. But I'm just looking at the fixtures here. So Fulham tomorrow, Saturday they got Everton, Tuesday they got Real Madrid at home, then they've got Saturday Brentford, then they got Real Madrid away on the 16th, which is 4 days later, and then 4 days after that they got Ipswich away. I just think that Real Madrid first and second leg with Arsenal almost ruling themselves out of the title race is going to be way more important for Arsenal than that of an Ipswich game in game week or the Brentford game in between the two. I know it's obviously a game that they obviously need to win, but I just think that Real Madrid game, first and second leg, is Saka all over. And I just don't know whether his minutes are going to be 90, 90, 90 like we're used to.
I mean, who gets more minutes this week, Saka or Palmer?
I think they probably get even, to be honest with you. But I think over the next 3 game weeks, I'd much rather have Palmer. Palmer against Tottenham, Brentford, and Ipswich versus Saka at home to Fulham, away to Everton, at home to Brentford, with Real Madrid squeezed in between. I'd rather have Palmer.
There is an argument. I do respect the point that you're making. Like, there is an argument that Saka floats around the mid-70s in terms of minutes. That argument is there. I think the flip side is as you said, they're about even this week, potentially in terms of minutes. And the fact that they're both coming back at roughly the same time, although you could probably put Palmer ahead in terms of minutes, I think this week would be wise to do that. But I'm thinking from a point of pre-booking transfers. Like you could do, looking at this draft, you could leave Palmer in there, but it would still be looking to get it to such a place that you're going, right, well, who's my 3-man city? Do you know, I would be trying to build the other pieces in for all the double game week players so that if you're leaving yourself with Palmer to Saka down the line, you're not the whole mess having to make a whole pile of other transfers. Like Isaac, the Watkins will definitely have to be done for a double. Definitely have to be done.
So who's your third city then? Foden? Because third city for me,
Who is it?
I genuinely, I'm looking at it and thinking Foden can obviously again be a Saka placeholder if that's what you want. But Foden for me is just not done it recently anyway. So I'd be doing that out of blind faith rather than anything else. And I'm looking and thinking I would rather own Palmer out of those two. And Saka, obviously, I love the idea of being able to get on Saka, but I think it's a super aggressive move to get on Saka now. I can understand if you've got someone and you're ready to make that plan move, but like you said, if you're doing that one and you've already got a few others, you're making so many plan moves already. I feel like this is the downside of wildcarding now, is that there's still quite a few moves you'd have to make. But
absolutely spot on.
But Saka, I just feel like Saka's really aggressive, personally, because I mean, I could be completely wrong here, and Nacho will know it way more than me. But even Palmer, like I was shocked to hear that he was just going to be absolutely fine and he's back. And obviously, I'm shocked to hear the same about Saka. But I think I would just feel a little bit better with Palmer. But then this is 17 days since everybody was saying how rubbish Palmer's been recently. So it's interesting that seems to be the biggest question mark. Is that midfield slot? Yeah, we're back there exactly.
Jackson back, Madueke back,
Nkunku
we're back.
Yeah, I think that front line is pretty nailed personally, and I think there's a lot of players here that look now. You know, an Arsenal defender, Arsenal double up in defence seems sensible. Munoz at the back there. It'd be interesting to see what happens because obviously there's a lot of players here that have done us well throughout the season that aren't included here, but this is what happens obviously. Hibbo, is there anything else that you wanted to mention about this Wildcard 30 team or players that you're thinking about putting in before I go on to the Wildcard 31 team and think about the differences between the two?
No, well, like I touched on goalkeepers, I think Martinez, Aston Villa, I think he's potential. I think Ederson's got potential. I wouldn't go down the Henderson route, because I think there's three better Crystal Palace assets. I think in terms of defence, what you could do is like the way Nacho's going for Murphy in midfield. I don't like Murphy personally myself. Like you could slot somebody else in there and maybe go Livramento or Byrne as potential defenders. They fill that slot for or maybe potentially two slots for Newcastle. You could also go very aggressive in Palace and go like Sarr, Eze, Matera as three attackers. Yeah. Like there's different combinations of teams that you can put together. I think roughly this is there. I wouldn't really be there for Murphy, but I would be kind of conscious to say like, could I do 3-man city and who would be my 3-man city be? And like you could go down the Ederson route. From time to time, Ederson just drops dead and Ortega does nets. Not ideal. Savinho's very punty.
They've just had a baby as well. Is Savio? They've just had their first baby, I think.
You Andy Martin?
I think genuinely, I think he has. Yeah. So whether he plays, I'm not sure.
So like these are the different kind of possible combinations for this team. I think by and large, I think it's solid enough. But just a few things, like I would be very mindful. Don't be trying to build on too many transfers on their team, because I think you're going to get the 33 and think, right, I need to buy a Watkins, I need to buy a Rodgers, I need to buy a Saka. And it's, I need to buy a third-man City player. And it's going to be too much.
It's the Palace, though, isn't it? It's if you haven't got any Palace and you can get 3 Palace into your team for Southampton away before 2 doubles, that's the big thing for me. Because even if you jump on Palace in 31, you could have missed the boat by then. Like Southampton could be the most lucrative week for them in the next 3. Even with the 2 doubles. So, I don't know. It's going to be an interesting one. There's going to be obviously swings, isn't there? Because you obviously can't own them all and people are going to wildcard and then that's when they get their green arrows. But I'm looking at this. I think this is fine. I think Nacho's doing a pretty good job here. And Nacho, are you percentage wise? Where are you in terms of wildcard? And do you think this will be it?
Yeah, I think I'll be close to this. I obviously will look at our teams later, but I just think there are enough changes here and enough aggressive moves to justify going this direction. I do agree, though. I think if I was wildcarding, I probably would want one more, not upside chasing pick, but maybe just another exposure to the Man City team. But I just really can't confidently put myself on any player right now, so it probably would land with this, and I would just go for the double up of Murphy and Isak. So yeah, I think if I landed on something like this, with the exclusion of probably Wan-Bissaka, I'd be okay.
Another thing I'll say as well before we look at the wildcard 31 is I'm gutted that we've lost Haaland and Trent, two of the most expensive players in their positions, before people are wildcarding, because this has just made budget non-existent, basically, hasn't it? Like, you would have had to have fit in a 14.8 million striker and a 7 million defender, although most people maybe would have moved off Trent anyway. But I'm just looking at it and thinking it just made it so much easier. And Marmoush just being there, half the price of Haaland. Like, it seems to have gone very, very well for those that were planning on doing this anyway. But it's just, it's made it interesting. It's probably given us a little bit of a look as to what FPL might be like next season, if obviously Salah and Trent both leave, because budgets are going to be very interesting next season. Looking at the Wildcard 31 team, interesting to see a few of the changes. The strike force is exactly the same, but talk us through some of the changes here, Nacho.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I think the strike force, the front line just picks itself right now. We just don't have any other real options available to us. And some of the other players have stuck around, as I mentioned. So Mo Salah's sticking around in this team. Got Gabriel in this team. We got Munoz. I'm just trying to get it up here. Yeah, so I think in terms of the goalkeeper, I actually thankfully changed it to Martinez here, just to give it a little bit of a alternative goalkeeper selection, and I think Hibbo's already touched on that quite well, that he is a really good option for your teams. Again, the only thing I would state with Aston Villa is Champions League football is going to come into effect. So while that might not necessarily impact Martinez, those that are maybe looking on some rogue picks like a Rashford or an Asensio, I would tread carefully, because Champions League is going to be a priority for Aston Villa over anything else, I think, and that is going to be a bit of a hard way to predict anything. So we got Ray Martinez between the sticks, Gabriel, Munoz, Vardial, Concert, and Burns. So pretty identical at the back, to be honest with you. Rodgers comes in for Kluivert, because we've gone past that ideal Bournemouth fixture, and Rodgers will be in there for double game week 33, hopefully, if it is announced. Sarr, Murphy, Saka instead of Cole Palmer, for those that want to be a bit more aggressive and maybe have seen enough in game week 30, and then Mo Salah and the front three. So I think the conclusion that I came to when I was building this game week 31 wildcard was, in my head, there were ones that I just were non-negotiables for selection. And I felt like when I was building this, it kind of confirmed my own questions to myself, where is the news that we get later on this week, might not even get any, worth holding off on? And is this team any better than what I can build in game week 30? And I came to the conclusion that there isn't. I don't see enough upside in game week 31 wildcard, unless the double game week news is different. That's the huge upside you get. If the news is exactly the same as what we're anticipating, and I kind of back those that make these projections, the team I'm building in game week 31 is going to be very similar to game week 30, just way more expensive. So that's the conclusion I think I've come to off the back of building these two drafts.
Yeah, I was just about to mention price changes. Obviously, these players are going to be a lot more expensive because a lot of people are going to be investing in them, especially the Crystal Palace boys. The other thing I will say is, though, we obviously get another week's worth of information. So that it can be massive. There can be some more suspensions, there can be more injuries, and obviously that really helps you if you're going into 31. Interesting, and somebody mentioned it in the chat, and Hibbo mentioned it earlier. You've obviously got 3 Villa here, which would stop you being able to get Watkins. Would Watkins be somebody you would want to be able to get? So would you take out, say, a Konsa for someone else?
Yeah, I definitely think that is one to consider. I think it is just a case of probably treading carefully around those Champions League games, because I don't think he necessarily plays Southampton, but that'll be in game week 32, so he won't be going there. So after that, yeah, I think probably would make sense to maybe allow yourself the possibility of bringing in Watkins. I agree. But yeah, I was just thinking, the information we get for game week 31 is only this weekend, isn't it? So we only
Yeah.
are going to get the news. So we only got a few days. We only got 4 days, haven't we? Really? Yeah. I'm just thinking, is there enough value in that? Sorry, I'm just talking to myself.
Yeah. I mean, Hibbo, talk us through it then, mate. You're looking at, Game Week 31 draft here. There's a Wildcard 30 draft we looked at just now. Is there enough of a difference, or is there enough of a positive or an upside, whatever you want to call it, to make you say, no, if my team's looking okay at the moment, Wildcard 31's the one for me?
But this is a conversation we had at the start of the program, and it's like define what's okay. Okay doesn't cut the mustard. Like, really, what we want now with like 8 or 9 game weeks of the season is we want to drop a hammer and do as well as we possibly can over as short a period of time as is possible. Now, like, I look at my team, and despite the fact, well, you'll not agree, I don't have Isaac, I don't have Salah, I don't have any Palace. I don't have Marmoush. So I'm looking at this team, whether I'm looking at the Wildcard 31 iteration or the Wildcard 33, and there's so many changes to my team that I feel improves me this week. I think there's a danger that you could kind of look at it this week and think, I can get by.
Yeah.
But like 2 Palace players could make a big difference. They could go out and smash Southampton 5-0. They could score 15 points apiece. And it could be big scoring and big gains. And this is ultimately what it's about. It's about risk or reward. It's about kind of throwing caution to the wind and saying, okay, look, we don't have these fixtures, but I could gamble on that to try and gain 20 or 30 points this week. And that's really what people are aiming for. But like, I think they touch on the differences between the 2 wildcards. Like, Nacho's obviously moved the team forward a week, because Kluivert drops out, Rodgers comes on. Wee small changes like that. I think the fella in the chat was bang on. You could maybe drop Cons out, put Livermore to 1, and do something slightly different with Jacob Murphy in midfield. I really, really like this draft. But what I will say is, if you delay in a week in your wildcard, means like you're potentially not going to have Triple Palace. That's where the gain is. So like that's where you're rolling the dice to say, well, look, you know what? Ben Crellin, Tala, James from Planet FPL, all these boys that predict fixtures, we're backing them. We're backing them, and we're backing that the fixtures are going to fall. Now, what I will say compared to previous years is this is the kind of the later double, if you know what I mean. Because normally the big blank is the FA Cup quarter-final week. So normally that week is skittled and those fixtures go everywhere. Like, these are a small amount of fixtures that have to slot on the schedule. So because of that, they've got a fair amount of confidence. And because of their predictions around, well, these teams are in Europe, Forest play on Monday night, I have the general feeling that by the time we get the fixtures, they're going to land exactly as we expect. And look, I think it depends on where you are in terms of your rank. I don't want to play safe at 100k. And I think like in terms of I'm leading the way. But like 100k doesn't mean anything to me at the end of the season. Like, I want to kind of try and push on and at least see if we can get up to about 40, 50, maybe a bit higher with a bit of luck. So like, I'm kind of willing this week to gamble. And the gamble could extend the captaincy as well. The gamble could extend the Marmoush armband and just really make this a week that I just go for it.
I look at this, and we were mentioning it just before, where you can look at something like a Wildcard 30, and this happens every single year, where people will go, this is foolproof. I don't see a way that this can fail. And I'm looking at triple Crystal Palace, who we've already said that teams have had tough, weekend games in the FA Cup. I know theirs wasn't tough, but they still played. And obviously, you've got Mateta, who, is there a guarantee he's going to play midweek? Nketiah came on and scored. There's not a guarantee Mateta's going to play. And Ismail Assar has been a lovely player to own, but he's blanked quite a few times this year as well. And who's to say that Southampton don't score at home? So all of a sudden you can look at that triple Palace and people can be jumping on them the week after when you've had loads of blank players. And remember, you're still going to have other players that play instead of those Palace players. So people are going to have their Mbumos, their Bruno Fernandes is still players like that who are on penalties, get all the minutes. I don't get me wrong, I'm just playing devil's advocate here. If I could have triple Palace this week, I would. But it's not a foolproof that, we say this every single year, it always happens, and then all of a sudden something changes and something happens, one fixture goes wrong. And I'm just thinking, I get it, but also if you're not wildcarding in game week 30, you might be doing it in 31, or like you said, you might not have a free hit and you might be doing it later. You can invest, you can do what. I just think it's not foolproof personally, but that's because I'm not wildcarding this week, so I've got to think like that. But it's an interesting one to look at, and obviously, there's a lot of people that are wildcarding this week, and it could be an absolute game changer this week, and it could be that this is the best week to do it.
I just think
Nacho said it already,
yeah.
haven't you? That there's not a massive difference between the 2 weeks, so is there?
No, there isn't. I just think if you are of the opinion that you are going to be capitalising on double game week 32, then you're going to wildcard in either 30 or 31. You've got Southampton away. Listen to these numbers: 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 3, 3, 3, 5. Those are the goals conceded in each game by Southampton. I mean, I don't even want to look at the Leicester ones, but what I'm trying to say is, if you think you're going to wildcard, I think Palace away against Southampton and Man City at home against Leicester, if you know you're going to own those boys regardless, why wouldn't you get it done in game week 30 and roll the dice on those fixtures and have at least the opportunity? And if it doesn't happen, it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, let's have a look at some best teams then. So this is my best team. So this is obviously what I'm saying in terms of I'm not feeling like I need to wildcard this week. I got Pickford in goal. He's my weakest position. Liverpool away. I'm not expecting anything. But I got Gabriel at home, Howson at home to Ipswich, and Ait-Nouri at home to West Ham. Then I got Cliver and Bumo, Salah, Palmer and Bruno in the middle, all on penalties, all getting guaranteed minutes. Happy with that. I got Wood up top, who's obviously injured, but I'm going to be losing him for Marmoush. Exact transfer. They're both 7.3. And I got Isak up front. So I've still got Isak and Salah. I've got Rico Lewis first on my bench, who I'm actually expecting to start, but he's first on my bench. I just can't fit him in. With getting the Marmoush transfer, the only thing I don't have is I have no Palace. The only way I was going to get Palace is if I was going to do Wood to Mateta, or I was going to do Palmer to Eze or Sarr, or I was going to do Hall to Munoz. But I think getting Marmoush makes the most sense now because he's captainable, to be perfectly honest. So I'm looking at this and thinking, unless I am really that scared of Palace this week, which I could be, I don't think I need to. Genuinely, I think I could just do it next week.
Yeah.
Tumbleweed.
No, you could. This is the thing. We don't want it to be just like you have to do the same thing. I want the answer said to me. Like, I'm just trying to think why you wait till game week 31. That is literally it.
Yeah.
It's
Palace.
I need that.
That's the only thing. It's in it. It's that Palace fixture. It's how big I think Palace are going to go against Southampton.
But see the thing about this week is some of us have to score 70 points and some of us have to score about 30 points. Okay? See the boys with the Palace, they're scoring about 70 points this week.
And also, look at the ranks. It's definitely going to be me that's on the bad end. But
no, I think it's grand. I do agree with you to a certain extent. I think your team's playable. I think if you add Marmoush on, you're getting through. I just think it's
playable. This is a good team.
It is a great team.
Still got Salah, still got Isak. That defence, I can't play Lewis this week, and he's most probably going to play against Leicester at home. All those penalty takers in midfield, you're losing Mbumo, you're losing Palmer. You're keeping Palmer. You're losing Mbumo and Bruno. I know they've got away fixtures, but they're both on pens. I don't see much wrong personally.
No, it's down to personal choice. It is down to personal choice. And as you said, like Palace might come up short, they might not do the stuff, but I do think it's part of it where it's like you're making a transfer, you're rolling a transfer, you're playing the wildcard at the same time, and then you get forward and like you start to build up your transfer stack. They attack then 33 and free hit 34. And it just feels like the times now. Maybe I'm being a wee bit impatient and jumping the gun, but it just feels like, I don't know. The season's been a bit of a disappointment. And I think now at this point
Tell
for
me about it.
No, I know that, and it has been for you, but I think now's the time, I think, to kind of, for me anyway, push on and really kind of roll the dice and try and get lucky and try and really go for the jackpot. And I think this week, given the fixtures and how they fall away, Southampton, Leicester, all that, and the doubles, and the blank coming up in 34, it just feels like now's the time to kind of attack, if you will.
Next week stinks. Game week 31 stinks. Honestly, it stinks, the fixtures. They're horrible.
Looking at Hibbo's Game Week 31 team, I mean, don't get me wrong, we've been looking at his team for the last 5-6 weeks and said it doesn't look great, and he keeps getting green arrows. But you're obviously, this is the team that you're looking at and thinking, nah, I need to get rid of this. I need to wildcard.
I'll always kind of get the feeling when I need the wildcard. And if I look at that team now and compare it to potentially what I could do, Pickford's obviously a weak spot. My midfield's grand. No, Kluivert and Semenyo's playable. My double Arsenal I should touch on. They're grand. Gvardiol's grand. Bumo's playable. Palmer, Bruno. The whole midfield's playable. Up top, obviously, Hans come a wee bit unstuck. He's injured. João Pedro, get him out of there. And then the bench, everybody on the bench can go. Better. In one respect, like I was looking at my team thinking, I can definitely play through this week. That was before Haaland got injured. But I basically would have made one change to my team this week, and that would have done me. I probably would have kept Haaland. But I think now that Haaland's out, I have to make a transfer anyway. I'll have no pass. I'll have no Salah. The team, apart from that, still looks okay, but I'll have Haaland injured, no Salah, no Isaac, no pass. What am I waiting for? There's no point in me defending a wildcard anymore, especially once it came out and basically. No, but there's no point.
Calm down.
There's always going to be a moment where you get the clarity and you get the realization, and then you think to yourself, "Now's the time to do it. Now's the time to go." And like, this is it for me. Like, I can't risk going on without them players. Potentially take a piston this week and be so far behind the game for what reason? Because I didn't want the wildcard and take a wee bit of risk. Don't mind taking a risk this week. So I think for me, the key bit of news was the fact that Haaland's injury is going to be a wee bit longer. I think if we were in a position where you were thinking Haaland might be back for 33 and we're still a wee bit unsure about Saka, that was a very different scenario. I think once the Haaland news came, they basically say, look, the chances are he's probably still going to be injured in double game week 33. For me, it feels like a no-brainer, and I think it lifts his team enough this week. It makes it's all right there, but it makes it a lot stronger.
Oh, your wildcard button's just screaming at you, isn't it? Come on, Nacho. This is your team that you're definitely wildcarding. You've got Salah, you've got Isak, you've got some Crystal Palace coverage.
Yeah, I feel like my team is actually a really good team to kind of like wrap up on in terms of, no, it ain't a good team, but it's a good team in the sense of you could look at this team and say this does not need a wild card, because whereas Hibbo doesn't have Mo Salah, this does. It's got Arsenal coverage, it's got double Palace, it's got Isak, it's got all of the kind of fundamentals. But look, I just wrote down 4 transfers here that will happen on the wild card. Pickford to Raya, huge improvement, preparation for double game week 33. Milenkovic to Vardial, big upgrade. Wood to Mateta, Vissa to Marmoush. I mean, those 4 alone, I look at those and think that is just a huge upgrade for game week 30. So just to read out my team right now: Pickford, Munoz Gabriel, Milenkovic the hero, Kluivert Palmer, Mbeumo Semenyo, Salah, captaincy, Isak and Wood. So,
sorry.
So what's going on then?
Yeah, I know.
All right, mate.
Yeah, just a bit ill, I know.
All good?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, keep going.
Okay.
Oh, dear.
I thought I told a sad story then. So yeah, the plan is to wildcard. I think the more I've been on this pod, the more it's confirmed to me that I just want to be aggressive with my moves. Maybe because I've had a few red arrows, I want to go on it.
Come on, sorry, crying it. Oh, right, sorry. It was as soon as you mentioned Vandenberg, I lost it. Right, it wasn't that. Sorry, I'm a bit ill. If anybody hasn't noticed. Oh, God, sorry. Right.
He threw up when he seen his own team.
Oh, I did, yeah. Oh, as soon as I saw Hibbo's reaction to me saying I wasn't roll carding, I hated myself. Right, let's have a look at the com team. FPL Yellow Army says FPL cough mode. Yeah, Christ. Right, so the com team, unfortunately, had a very good week. Flecken with 3, Greaves with 0, Ola Aina with 1, Gabriel with 5, Kirkers with 4, Elanga with 16. Bowen with 5, Clivert with 2, Semenyo 1, Wood 2, and Haaland captain with 14. They hit 53 points, which is a 3k green arrow up to 64k. They used 3 of their 4 free transfers to sell Trent, Palmer and Wissa for Kirkes, Elanga and Haaland. And this week, they're going to use 2 free transfers to sell Haaland and Wood for Marmoush and Mateta. So fair play to them, not wildcarding, but then that'll give them double Crystal Palace. And obviously they're going to have Marmoush as well, so fair play to them. M. Dye says some serious screenshots were taken by Hibbo there. Yeah, probably as well. Yeah, so fair play to the com team. They're looking good still. There's nothing there that you would be worried about, I don't think. It'd be interesting to see when they wildcard, because they've already got 2 Palace. So, but they do have triple Bournemouth, so maybe they'll wildcard in 31, potentially. Not looking like a bad move for them. Right, let's see if we can get a few questions from the community. I'm going to try my best not to die through it, but chuck us in some questions. I'm sure we've got a few. We are probably got about 4 or 5 minutes. We can answer a few questions, and Nacho and Hibbo are absolute experts at answering these questions quickly as well. So we'll get through as many as possible. Just chuck them in.
We got some Saka news as well, by the way, that he's played a match behind closed doors and was fine. Just if that was
Really?
any confirmation bias for anyone. Interesting.
Didn't say what the match was. Could have been like a local 5-a-side, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Paul Morgan says, would you not look at bench boost 32? So much better than 33. Also, Saka played match behind closed doors. Yeah, so Nacho, any love for bench boost in 32 rather than 33?
Yeah. To be honest, I wrote down my chip strategy as at the time of recording. Mine would be a wildcard 30, bench boost 32, because I prefer the single game week. Triple captain possibly in 33, and a free hit in 34. Interesting.
I can't see beyond Isak in 32 for that triple captain. Just looks so good. Who else we got? Sodnika says, how likely is Crystal Palace to get a table bonus against Brighton, Hibbo?
Table bonus against Brighton? When's that?
Because what are Palace at the moment? 12th, 13th?
I will let you know now.
When's the Brighton fixture, boy?
Oh, I can't remember off the top of my head. Hang on.
So Brighton are 7th, Palace are 12th, and there is how many points? 8 points between them, and the game is 31. So it should be table bonus. Yeah.
Could be. Well, you'd expect so. You'd expect Palace to win this week against Southampton. So that would tighten up to 5 points, but that's still enough. So you would fancy that's the case, and it would be table bonus, and if so, you would fancy Palace. Not Glasner's been a really good pick for table bonus.
Yeah,
I think he's been just a bit. Like I think he's looked like a really good pick in terms of the assistant manager chip. So yeah, don't see why not.
FPL rank chaser Matt says, who would you prioritise bringing in this week, Isak or Marmoush, Nacho?
For me, it has to be Isak, just because of the double later on in 32. Sorry, before Man City's predicted one.
Drew, surname Peacock, says, are Timber's minutes safe, Hibbo?
Wait, what?
We don't know.
Hibbo's
it's a long and short of it. Like, his minutes have been safe up until now. If you're asking me, would I pick Timber on a wildcard? Definitely not. Yeah. Now's the time where Ben White's waiting on the wings. They might change it up. Miles Lewis-Kelly is obviously really good if he's playing the left back. I don't know if Timber's worth the risk of what it was earlier in the season when Ben White was injured.
Lovely stuff. Right. Thank you so much for all those people in the chat chucking in your questions. I think we topped out about 700 people watching tonight. So thank you so much for joining us this evening. Thank you so much as well if you're listening to this afterwards. And also thank you so much if you are listening on the pod as well. Thank you so much. We appreciate each and every one of you. Hibbo, thank you so much for joining us this evening, my man. Hope this solidified your wildcard thoughts. I reckon you've got a bit of an opinion on wildcard. Are you fancying it? Are you pro wildcard this week?
I seem to be a wee bit pro wildcard.
Yeah, a little bit.
I'm actually I'm gonna activate the chip now when we come off air.
Oh, I like it. Can you do it? Can you do it now? Can you do it live on stream? Ooh. Press the button. Go on.
No, it's like a personal. It's like a personal moment between me and my team.
People would pay a lot of money to watch that happen. Nacho, can you do it?
Mate, mine's not as intimate as that. I just
Just stroke your phone
I could
and
flop out
intimately
now
press
if
the
you
button.
want. Yeah, I could do it.
It's fine. It's fine. Don't do it, bloody hell, boys. Right, Nacho. I hope you enjoyed yourself this evening.
Pleasure as always. Miss you guys dearly, and yeah, hopefully it's provided some value to those listening. And yeah, as you can see, there will be at least 2 wildcards active this week.
Yes, I like
People
it.
people are shouting about captaincy in the chat. They want to know roughly what way we would go. I think obvious born pick Salah. I think your next best pick, and this is what I wrote in my captaincy piece in Scout. Your next best pick is Isaac in terms of being solid home to Brentford, but I think Marmoush is probably
I'm going
level with
Marmoush.
Isaac. I think if you want to go spicy, it's Marmoush, but I think loads of people will maybe just play the safe game and go Salah as a 1 and captain him this week. But I do think if you want something spicy outside the box, this is probably the week to do it. But I think might as well answer that because there was a few questions.
No, fair play. Yeah, I'm going Marmoush, I think. And, you know, I'm averaging 34 points for captaincy over the last game week. So. Right, thank you so much to all of you. And I should also say as well, Eben Barrett, to all of our fans out there as well. We will see you again Thursday, potentially. So we will, so we will see you again soon. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you then. Bye-bye.